I'm going to talk here about 54 excellent sciences, 18 of which are creativity and novelty sciences, two of which are 60 models of innovation, 60 models of creativity. The innovation models include one model which is 420 natural selection dynamics and another model which is 420 Silicon Valley dynamics. Now, this hierarchy from excellent sciences to creativity and novelty sciences to plural models of two of those creativity, novelty, sciences, innovation, and creativity, two very particular to innovation models, Silicon Valley dynamics and uh, natural selection dynamics. That hierarchy of models is sort of the core of Richard Green's research and approach to research. I want to explain that a little bit here. So I got the structure already into your mind a little bit. So we have 54 excellent sciences. These are 54 different ways to reach the top of nearly any field. 18 of those turned out to be creativity and novelty sciences, which are ways to bring the new into human affairs. Two of those 18 turned out to be creativity, and I found 60 models of creativity in my data set of 8,000 people. And I found 60 models of innovation in my data set of 8,000 people. And then two of those innovation models were 420 natural selection dynamics, 420 Silicon Valley dynamics. So that's the structure, that's the hierarchy. Now, let's talk about where it came from, why it exists, what its worth is, how it differs from everything else you get in academia. Number one, I was working at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, launching venture technology businesses, having a great time. We're working with the very best software tools in the world, doing some secret government work that gave me even exposure to better systems than you can get in private industry. And really having a great time and loving the coast on the West Coast. It solved all the problems that I personally had with East Coast snobby, mathematic, analytic, greed culture. So it was a wonderful time in my life and a wonderful experience. I get this phone call 11 o'clock at night from this dean of the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business wanting me to be faculty there. And of course, I didn't want to. Their salaries were lousy. Their faculty is right wing and bigoted. They're out of date. Their computer systems are 40 years out of date. No technology on campus at all. It was, a ridiculous idea. However, there are some great things about the tradition of the university. The great books tradition isn't bad. The way the University of Chicago initially employed it. Their confidence to be very, very intellectual compared to Harvard and Stanford and MIT is appealing. Their laissez-faire way of treating faculty is quite consistent with their right-wing ideology and a delight in terms of administration. If you want to know what good government feels like, the way you're treated by the administration at the University of Chicago Business School is the way light little levels of government feels like it. It's a great feeling. So there were some counteracting things too. But basically at the time he made the phone call, I was not ever thinking about being a professor, was not interested. And then, the computer systems were really 40 years out of date, and you'd lose a lot of technical edge by moving from the West Coast to Chicago. So I wasn't going to consider it. Later, my wife got seriously sick, and we thought we might have to go back to Japan to live to recover her health. And then I realized that a university job via working at the University of Chicago might be the only kind of decent job I could tolerate while I was in Japan. So we changed our mind a year later and accepted the job, and I ended up in front of some MBAs to educate them. I had no idea what education was. About 200 books on it from philosophers and leaders and all that stuff. It turned out they had no idea what education was. Everybody said education people are people like me. So, Rousseau said educated people are people like Rousseau, and Marx said educated people are like Marx, and Habermas said educated people are like Habermas. Thomas Luhmann said educated people are like me, and Hans Georg Gadamer said educated people are like me, and it was all a pile of narcissistic, self-praising crap like white males. And so, I knew that wasn't educatedness. That was just some sort of imperial Western crap. So how do you define the good? How do you define what education is in our time in a non-bigoted, practically powerful, humane way? And so I decided to borrow what I learned from doing expert systems and artificial intelligence. We had this two-tier process for nominating experts. You ask the most expert people you know who the experts are, and then the people they nominated you then used as your initial set of experts, asking them also who are experts. So I thought I could do the same thing to define the good and educatedness in our time. And so I got a set of stratified sample of 63 professions widely distributed throughout society. and people from 41 nations, and we had 350 people, half from the U.S., half from 41 nations, in 63 different professions, 5 each, and we asked them, who are the best people in your field? How do they got to be best? And then we visited those guys and asked them, how did you get to be best? What makes you better than average people in the field? And we ended up with 54 excellent sciences, 54 different ways to be best in any field. Now get that in your head. 54 ways to be the world's best physicists. Highest quality, most effective, most creative, best management functions, best handling complexity, etc., etc. So every field we had 54 of these routes to the top of that field, 54 different ways to be at the top of any field. That was excellent science. It turned out 18 of those 54 were how you bring the new into the world, so-called creativity and novelty sciences. Composing, performing, venture business laws, invention, discovery, creativity, all of that stuff. So, and then it turned out when so we ended up with 350 people who then, once we got 54 excellent sciences from them, we asked them, who is the most educated person you know? Who's the most effective person you know? Who's the most creative person you know? Who's the best at handling complexity? Who's the best at handling error? Who's the best at management functions? In other words, for each of the 54 excellent sciences, we asked them to nominate 150 people great at that particular excellent science. Then we'd go interview those 8,000 people for the basis, the actual capabilities that made them highly educated acting, and that's how they rose to the top of their field. Highly creative, that's how they rose to the top of their field. Great at management functions, how they rose to the top of their field. So we interviewed those 8,000 people over a 7-year period. And part of that is we came up with 60 models of creativity, not one, not 5. 60 models of creativity from these 8,000 people. We came up with 60 models of innovation from these 8,000 people. And then one of those innovation models was natural selection dynamics. We came up with 420 natural selection dynamics. And another one was founding technology ventures in Silicon Valley. By interviewing 150 Silicon Valley founders, we found 420 Silicon Valley dynamics that they all shared. So this is my body of research so far from 1992 at the University of Chicago to today. And this is the core that runs down through the center of my research, my thinking, the books that I write, and the practice, the consulting that I do. And it's what I use to make my students best in the world at whatever companies they're in, or to form companies that become best in the world.